Hey everybody, welcome to my reaction video from last night's CONMEBOL South American World Cup qualifiers, match day 15. We only have 3 more games for everyone in South America to play, and boy, is it tight. Just 5 points separate second place Colombia from 8th place Ecuador. Everyone between second and 8th is within 5 points of each other. This is going to be a brawl all the way to the end. This may be the closest CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying season of the modern era. Now, Brazil has already secured passage comfortably. Um, Took them almost 70 minutes to break the deadlock against Ecuador last night, but they didn't really need the victory, but they were professional and they sought after it anyway. Uh, where to begin? Ecuador held their own. They did a decent job of holding Brazil at bay, but Brazil was really struggling to put away their chances. Either way, Brazil are on top of the standings right now. They're most likely going to go on to top the Hex, and they could break the record of, I believe, 42 or 43 points that was held by Argentina in 2002. So, 9 consecutive wins by Brazil. That's a record that's never happened before from any CONMEBOL team in World Cup qualifying. They'll be searching for their 10th win on the road in Barranquilla, Colombia, although I think that'll be a difficult game, and I think their streak will break there. I think they'll either draw or lose. As for Colombia, a frustrating match for them against Venezuela, but they have to consider it a good point that they got on the road, considering that they usually lose in Venezuela, and they haven't beaten Venezuela in Venezuela, I believe, since the 1990s. So for Colombia, they should be satisfied with the point, although I understand why they would not be, considering they're playing Brazil next week, but I really don't see Brazil getting a win on the road unless they really force it next week in Colombia, because they just don't need to. Um, so for Colombia, they're still on track to qualify, even if they do lose at home next week to Brazil, which I don't think is going to happen. Paraguay and Chile. Oh my goodness. Does Chile not want to go to the World Cup? They started off really poorly with a Arturo Vidal own goal, and from there on, the momentum just completely shifted to Paraguay. Chile looked like they were in shambles. They did not respond well. They looked completely gutted after scoring an own goal. Um, Paraguay looked absolutely lethal in the counterattack, where 2 of their 3 goals came from. And Paraguay, unexpected victory on the road, such an emphatic victory as well, 3-0 in Santiago, in Chile. So Paraguay are now back into the discussion, and I'll get to Paraguay again towards the end of my video. But let me move on to the other matches. Uruguay versus Argentina. I expected it to be a draw. It was easily the most boring affair of the 5 matches yesterday. Few chances here and there for Argentina to take it and for Uruguay to win as well, but Uruguay's defense did an excellent job of holding Sampaoli's men back. Argentina will take the point. It's more of a frustration for Uruguay, considering they haven't won any of their last 3 or 4 qualifying games, and they could be doomed to that 5th place playoff yet again for the 5th consecutive time if they don't pick up the pace and start getting results in their next 3 games. They're going to Paraguay on the road next week, which is not an easy game to play. If anything, Paraguay, coming off this momentum against Chile, they should be the slight favorite to get a result, to win at home against Uruguay, despite the fact that Uruguay are a better team. Um, so for Argentina, they're limping their way up the ladder, and I honestly think Argentina will not be the team that plays the Oceania representative in the 5th place playoff. I do think by the conclusion of this qualifying season, Argentina will finish somewhere in the top 4. Who else played yesterday? Um, Peru versus Bolivia. Yeah, very crucial victory for Peru to keep their World Cup hopes alive as well. Bolivia almost equalizing in the dying stages of the game really would have sunk Peru's campaign, in my opinion, because they would have 19 points and be one of the few teams in the standings that have not broken through into the 20s. So Peru absolutely needed all 3 points last night to still make a case to push potentially for a playoff spot, and maybe in the most extreme case scenario, finish in fourth. But I really don't see Peru, if they do make a late surge and somehow survive, I don't see them finishing higher than fifth, to be honest. Fourth is possible, but fifth is what I see as most likely. Um, if Gareca can get his side to pull off some big results in their last 3 games, which come against, I think, Argentina on the road, which is very difficult, Colombia at home, which is still very difficult, and who else do they play? I don't remember, but still, they don't have an easy schedule remaining. So I want to go back to Paraguay for a second because there's well, them and 3 teams. Ecuador, Paraguay, and Peru are all now in the 20s as far as points. Paraguay and Peru at 21, Ecuador still at 20. That's not good news for the teams in the top 5, because now the sort of middle tier teams, the teams that are in between the top 5 and Venezuela and Bolivia, the bottom dwellers, they're making a case now to fight for a spot in the top 5, or at least a playoff spot. Paraguay probably did themselves the biggest favor last night, defeating Chile on the road, because Paraguay beats Uruguay next week at home in Asuncion. They're on 24 points, and if all the results go their way, they could move up to 5th or 6th. And then they have 2 games remaining, one at home against Venezuela, which is another very winnable game. And before you know it, Paraguay has 27 points. Then they play on the road in Colombia, which will be difficult, but getting a result like a draw would not be totally out of the question. So there's the doors open for a team like Paraguay to sneak into the World Cup. For Peru, it's much harder. For Ecuador, it's hard too because they play Argentina at home. They play Chile on the road. And they play Peru at home as well. So you look at Peru, Paraguay, and Ecuador. Which of those 3 has the easiest remaining schedules? I'm going to say Paraguay. So we could potentially be seeing one of those 3 teams I just named sneak somehow into the top 5 and qualify. But things are getting much tighter in the table. There's no telling where or how this is going to finish, or who is going to finish where. Essentially, everyone below Brazil is not safe. Not safe. Not even Colombia, who's in 2nd, or Uruguay, who's in 3rd, because of just the incredibly low amount of points that are separating the 2nd place team and the 8th place side. So this is shaping up to have a photo finish and a grand finale. I have no idea what's going to happen for sure. I have my own ideas, my own predictions, but nobody is looking comfortable at the moment. So we'll just see how all find out how that transpires. So that's my reaction to last night's South American games. You know, teams that are staying on course: Colombia, Argentina, Uruguay, but just barely. Teams that have really fallen hard: Ecuador and Venezuela. Teams that are making a case at the last minute: Paraguay and Peru. Teams that are just conducting business as usual: Brazil. So leave a comment below, like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video later tonight. I'm going to be making a reaction video to, I think, today's European World Cup qualifying games. And I'll talk about Africa tomorrow, because not everyone in Africa has played at least once yet in this international break. That'll come tomorrow and all the rest of the games wrap up, and then I'll talk about Africa as a whole tomorrow. So have a good night, guys. Peace out.